not even attempt to draw a breath. Swallow the panic rising in the back of your throat, lock your jaw, and just look at the dust. Look at the microscopic particles of desiccated bark and ancient rotting wood suspended right there in the dead air. Keep your eyes fixed on that single, razor-thin shaft of muted daylight, bleeding through the fracture in the ceiling above us. A moment ago, this tomb was perfectly silent, perfectly still. But now, the dust is snowing down. The particles are dancing, vibrating, shaken loose from the fibrous rot of the roof by a force that the earth itself can barely support. Do you feel it? That deep, sickening plummet in the pit of your stomach? That is the instinctual, primitive brainstem screaming at you that death has arrived. Listen to the absolute void of sound that has suddenly swallowed the forest outside. The insects have stopped their frantic scuttling. The distant calls of the canopy dwellers have been choked off. There is only a massive, suffocating silence gap, a horrifying vacuum of anticipation. And then, the earth drops. A heavy, seismic, bass-driven thud violently displaces the ground just beyond the mark. It is not a footstep. It is a localized tectonic shift, a multi-ton impact that sends a shockwave through the damp soil, straight through the rotting wood, and directly into our fragile, shivering ribs. The ceiling groans. More dust cascades down, hitting the dry leaves below with a microscopic, granular patter that sounds like a roaring waterfall in this deafening quiet. It knows we are here. Or, at the very least, it knows something is here. Just freeze. Become the rot. Become the wood. We are entombed within the suffocating geometry of this decomposing cylinder. This fallen Cretaceous conifer is our only sanctuary, but it is also a violently restrictive prison. The interior space is agonizingly small, a pitch-black, irregular hollow carved out by centuries of fungal decay and insect tunneling. The curved walls of dead wood press mercilessly against our spines, forcing our limbs into contorted, unnatural angles just to fit within the recess. The physical confinement is absolute. There is no room to turn, no room to shift our weight, no room to even fully expand our lungs. Every single millimeter of our scaled bodies is pressed flush against the damp, spongy rot of the floor. The texture is sickening, a cold, wet matrix of decaying fibers, crumbling dirt, and the slick slime of subterranean moss. The air in here is heavy, thick with the overpowering scent of ancient petrichor, suffocating fungal spores, and the bitter, acidic tang of our own mounting terror. The darkness is near absolute, a crushing, impenetrable black that strips away all spatial awareness, leaving us completely reliant on that one solitary, narrow beam of gray light piercing the gloom. But that light offers no warmth, no hope. It only serves to illuminate the tactile terror of our disintegrating sanctuary. It highlights the jagged, splintering edges of the wood that threaten to impale us if we flinch. It exposes the fragile, crumbling nature of the roof that is the only physical barrier between our soft, vulnerable flesh and the apocalyptic violence waiting outside. We are trapped in a microenvironment of decay, locked in a paralyzed posture of submission, praying to the uncaring dirt that we go unnoticed by the gods of this primeval world. It begins not as a sound, but as a sickening, inescapable pressure radiating through the marrow of our bones. The proximity of the faceless hunter is crushing. Another step. The heavy, rhythmic displacement of soil is getting closer, pulling the atmosphere tight like a suffocating snare. You can feel the exact biomechanical reality of what is approaching, even without seeing it. There are no dramatic, theatrical roars. There is only the horrifying, functional physics of an apex predator on the hunt. Tons of muscle, dense bone, and thick, armored hide are being supported by massive, fleshy footpads that compress the damp earth with a wet, squelching finality. Every time it shifts its weight, the ground gives way, sending deep, infrasonic shock waves rippling through the fern undergrowth and right into the rotting shell of our log. The dry, agonizing crackle of the wood above us intensifies. The fibers are screaming under the immense displaced pressure of the footsteps. A jagged splinter of bark breaks loose from the ceiling and falls, tumbling through the single shaft of light, brushing against your snout before landing silently in the muck. Do not flinch. The physical struggle to remain completely, statically still is becoming unbearable. Your micro heartbeat is a frantic, fluttering percussion in your chest, 200 beats per minute, hammering against the wet wood like a tiny, desperate drum. It feels impossibly loud. To our hypersensitized ears, it sounds like a beacon, a pulsing alarm, broadcasting our exact coordinates to the monster outside. You are fighting the overwhelming, involuntary physiological urge to gasp for oxygen, to flood your burning muscles with air and bolt into the open. But running is a death sentence. You must swallow. You must choke down your own respiration, taking only shallow, microscopic sips of the stale, dusty air. Let the lactic acid burn in your cramped legs. Let your eyes dilate until the darkness physically hurts. Hold your breath until your lungs beg for mercy. The hunter is right outside the timber. The heavy, padded footstep comes down just inches from the entrance. The bass drop vibrates our teeth in their sockets. The light dies. The singular, narrow shaft of muted daylight that anchored us to the outside world is suddenly, violently eclipsed. A massive, wet, prehistoric shadow falls over the aperture, plunging our restrictive tomb into absolute, suffocating darkness. The climax of silence has arrived, and it brings a terror so profound it paralyzes the nervous system. The space has shrunk to nothing. The predator is no longer a distant seismic threat. It is a physical mass blocking our only exit. It is right there. You can smell the hot, suffocating stench of its breath rolling into the log. A foul, coppery miasma of ancient blood, decaying meat, and the metallic tang of pure, predatory intent. Close your eyes. Do not look at the hole where light used to be. A violent, wet, vacuum-like inhalation erupts at the log's opening. It is a massive, tearing sniff that aggressively sucks the very air out of our lungs, drawing the suspended wood dust and loose, dry leaves violently out of the tunnel, and into its gaping nostrils. The draft chills our damp scales. It is tasting the air. It is chemically dissecting the scent profile of the rot, the moss, and the undeniable sharp pheromones of our paralyzing fear. Time stops. The heartbeat in your chest seems to freeze between beats. And then comes the rumble. It is not vocalized, it is felt. A closed-mouth, subsonic vibration generated deep within a cavernous, reptilian chest cavity. The low-frequency infrasound washes over us like a physical wave of gravity. It bypasses our ears entirely and goes straight to our skeletal structure. The rumble rattles your ribcage. It vibrates your jawbone. It induces an involuntary, sickening tightening in your chest, a visceral, physiological dread that makes you want to curl into a microscopic ball and vanish into the molecular structure of the dirt. The massive entity is listening. It is waiting for a single scrape of a claw, a single stuttering breath, a single snapping twig to confirm what its olfactory senses are whispering. The absolute restriction of space, the overwhelming stench of the predator, and the chest-crushing infrasound combine to create a peak moment of agonizing, helpless terror. We are entirely at the mercy of the shadow. The eclipse slowly breaks. The terrifying mass blocking the entrance shifts, and a microscopic sliver of pale, muted light bleeds back into the fractured darkness of our tomb. But the terror does not recede. The echo of the encounter leaves a heavy, ringing silence in our ears, an agonizing aftermath that is just as paralyzing as the climax itself. The shadow moves away from the opening, but the massive fleshy footpads continue to compress the earth just a few feet away. The steps are agonizingly slow. Each bass-heavy thud is a calculated, deliberate movement, vibrating the ground with a rhythmic, fading intensity. Thud. The wood groans in protest. Thud. The dust, which had been violently sucked toward the entrance, now loses its momentum and begins to slowly, lazily drift back down onto the damp leaves, catching the returning light in a chaotic, swirling blizzard of microscopic debris. The withdrawal is excruciating. We cannot see the hunter. We can only track its departure through the receding seismic displacements and the slowly diminishing intensity of the subsonic hum. Every second stretches into an agonizing eternity of uncertainty. Is it truly leaving? Or has it simply repositioned itself just out of sight, waiting in the damp fern undergrowth with infinite, cold-blooded patience for us to finally break cover? The biological urge to gasp for air, to relieve the burning agony in our lungs, is overwhelming, but the lingering vibrations command us to remain frozen. We are trapped in a purgatory of adrenaline and paralyzing doubt, forced to endure the suffocating weight as the deep, chest-vibrating footsteps incrementally fade into the background noise of the primeval forest. The ringing silence is deafening, punctuated only by the granular hiss of the falling dust and the frantic, unbroken rhythm of our own terrified heartbeat. We are still here. The immediate crushing threat has dissolved back into the dark, damp undergrowth of the Cretaceous wilderness, leaving us alone in the rotting hollow. But there is no relief, no triumphant exhalation of survival. The legacy of this micro-scale saga is a grim, lingering trauma, etched directly into our primitive nervous system. The physical toll of the freeze response is absolute. The lactic acid aggressively burns in our contorted, cramped muscles. Our joints scream in silent agony from the prolonged, unnatural posture. Our lungs ache from the agonizing oxygen deprivation. We have survived another moment, but the victory is hollow, overshadowed by the paralyzing realization of our own absolute insignificance. We are not the protagonists of this ancient world. We are merely the dust settling in the footprints of giants. We are the prey. We exist at the very bottom of a brutal, unforgiving hierarchy, ruled by unfathomable forces of flesh, bone, and hunger. The decomposing cylinder that saved us is also a reminder of our fragility, a rotting, temporary shield against an environment that actively seeks to consume us. We will remain in this pitch-black, violently restrictive tomb for hours, unable to shake the phantom vibrations in our chest, unable to forget the smell of the wet, vacuum-like breath that nearly pulled us into the void. This is the endless, claustrophobic reality of survival. Just let the dust fall. Just remain perfectly, agonizingly still.